Good morning and welcome to the webinar, How to Pay for It, Grants, Loans, and Cost Share Options for Farmers. We are still waiting for Becky Williamson, who is our second presenter today, but I think I may just go ahead and get started, and I have her slides and can offer an overview of what she was going to talk about for FSA this morning, and hopefully she'll join in with us and be able to answer some of your questions. As you enter the conversation, all participants will be muted, but if you are calling in on your cell phone, you may need to mute yourself individually. If you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to add them to the chat box and we can address them as we go or at the end of the webinar as well. So this is part of a webinar series that's designed for the Southern Appalachian region, but we understand that folks will be joining from across the state and beyond, so hopefully we'll be able to offer some general information and resources that will be useful to folks in North Carolina and outside the region as well. This webinar is being recorded, so if you're not able to stay the whole time or if you were not able to attend the day of, it will be available on our website. My name is Molly Nicolai, and I'm the program director with ASAP. This is, I just wanted to premise the workshop today that there is no way to cover grants, loans, and cost shares holistically in an hour. So this webinar is really going to be designed to just give you an overview of a few resources that to help farmers in our region know where to look and who to ask about questions for accessing capital. And so hopefully there will be a few helpful resources, and again, make sure that you're connecting with the right folks that can help support you and in looking at how to pay for new opportunities. This webinar is made possible through a grant from the USDA Risk Management Agency. So for those of you who are not familiar with ASAP, we are a regional nonprofit that is serving the Southern Appalachians, and our mission is to help local farmers thrive, link farmers with markets and supporters, and build healthy communities through connections to local food. And so we have a local food research center, a farm to school program, as well as a local food campaign that's focused on training and technical assistance for farmers, as well as marketing and promotion support. And if you want to learn more about the resources, materials, and services that we offer, please visit our website, which is asapconnections.org. Becky Williamson is our absent presenter this morning, but I will try to cover her information as much as possible. She is the County Executive Director for Swain, Jackson, and Macon County here in Western North Carolina, and she's the Farm Service Agency is tasked with administering the Farm Bill programs for farmers and ranchers. And there was a lot of changes that came with the most recent Farm Bill, and so there are several new programs and some changes to existing programs that really offer some new opportunities for folks. The nice piece about FSA is it is not just based in Western North Carolina. It is nationwide. So whether you're joining us from here in our region or outside the region, please make sure to contact your FSA office, as they are a really helpful resource in looking at loan options for your farm. So just a few of the programs that FSA administers here. Again, a lot of loan opportunities that are really focused specifically for farmers and ranchers. I'm not going to go into any of these in depth, but again, we'll talk later in the presentation about some of the other loan options that FSA offers. But there's a lot of opportunities. Connect with your FSA office and see what kind of opportunities you might be able to access for your farm. So I mentioned earlier that this webinar is part of a grant through the USDA Risk Management Agency, and part of their focus is to help farmers plan for and hopefully reduce risk for their farms. And when I talk to farmers about how they define risk, a lot of folks will talk about crop failure or flood or crop insurance, and that is what we consider production risk, and that's one type of risk for your farm. And a lot of folks know that farming is a risky business, and that's the type of risk that they think about. But there's also marketing, financial, legal, and human resources risks that farmers face. And so this webinar is really designed to look at how to give you some tools to look at managing that financial risk. So being a part of this webinar today is one way that you're managing risk for your farm. Planning and gaining resources is really going to be an important tool to help you think about reducing risk and managing that for your farm. So again, a big piece of that is knowing your operation. What are your strengths in your operation? Both, again, thinking both production and financially as well. What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are recognizing what kind of opportunities you may have as you arise, and understanding what kind of threats your farm might be facing. And again, that might be production threats or it may be financial considerations. So grants is one of the tools that farmers have begun to use more to manage their risk, especially when entering a new enterprise or diversifying operations. And I guess I want to just reiterate that grants are a tool and not a substitute for a good business plan. That when you're looking at financial management for your farm, grants can be an important tool, but at the same time, they're not necessarily free money. When researching different potential grants, there is a lot of time and energy that goes into what are those grant requirements and writing that grant. And most of the grants come with some sort of strings attached, reporting requirements, stipulations for how you spend those funds. So please step back and really consider grant opportunities and if they're going to be a good match for your farm before you really dig your heels in, as they can be very competitive. And you may put a lot of time and energy in with zero return. So that's kind of one of the risks of grants, is that you can put a lot of time and energy into them with zero return, but at the same time, they can offer some opportunities to explore some options that you wouldn't typically be able to look into. So that said, there are a variety of grants out there really specifically focused for farmers. And I said this earlier in the webinar, but I want to also mention that I'm not going to go in depth into all the different grant opportunities that are available. This is really just an overview of where to find information about them. ASAP does have a grants page, a grants resource page that you can see on your screen here. You can go to that site directly through this URL at the top of your screen, or if you go to asapconnections.org, you can also access it through the drop-down menu under Tools for Farmers. But this really can give you an overview of a lot of different grants that are available to farms in our region. And again, these can be state grants all the way up through federal opportunities. So hopefully this site is designed to give you a snapshot of these grants so that you can kind of go through and do some research looking at them in a brief fit without having to dig through some of the heavy grant language to even find out when it's due or whether it's applicable for you and your farm. So this is a really helpful resource for looking at what kind of grant opportunities are out there. I'd also recommend talking to your local cooperative extension agent to see what kind of other opportunities might be available in your community. A couple that I would like to point out specifically for farmers that are right here in North Carolina, the WNC Ag Options Grant and Rafi's Tobacco Community Reinvestment Fund. These are both funded through the North Carolina Tobacco Trust Fund Commission, and again, only available to farms in North Carolina, but they can be a really great opportunity for farms to diversify their operation. But again, as these grants get out there and more applicants, they've become much more competitive. So really look at specific grants and make sure they are a good match for your farm, and learn a little bit about that funder and what are the goals that funder has to be able to write your grant to be specifically talking about your project as well as meeting what those goals are for the funder. So if you click on any of those individual grants on our website, it's going to give you a little bit of just, again, a snapshot of what that grant opportunity looks like. So who is eligible, what kind of activities, what can they be used for, how much, website and or contact information. So there's some of these grants that have a very specific deadline. The Ag Options Grant, for example, you will be seeing deadlines coming later this fall. And some of them are a rolling deadline, which means that they are open throughout the year and you can just apply any time of year. So again, this gives you a little snapshot to know if you want to explore, hopefully gives you the information to dig in if you want to explore more, and you can visit that website to get the specific contact information or more details about that particular project. Please feel free, if there's information that you find on this site that is either out of date or the link isn't working, or if you have questions about any particular resources that ASAP could offer and support, please feel free to give me a call or drop me a note, contact our office. Within that grants page, a lot of some of those listed are going to be cost share programs, and some of you may be very familiar with cost share. There are the cost share programs for production pieces through groups like NRCS. You might be familiar with cost share for fencing cattle out of a creek or reforesting a certain area, reducing invasive species. There's a variety of different cost share programs out there, but typically how cost shares are designed is that you pay a portion of the cost of that project, and whatever the program is going to be will cover usually up to half, but there's often different percentages of cost share that you can apply for. Cost shares are typically a little bit more accessible than other grants in that the applications are often simpler and sometimes less competitive. So one example I wanted to point out to you, especially to folks in our region, and when I'm talking about ASAP's region and our service area, I'm talking about the Southern Appalachians, or what we call our Appalachian Grown region. And you can see that map here on the bottom right hand of your screen. And so we're primarily focused in Western North Carolina, but also the Southern Appalachians. So about 100-mile radius from Asheville in a mountain county is ASAP's service region. So if you're within that region and you're interested in doing marketing, promotion, labeling of your product, and really want to tap into that local demand, we have a program right now for Appalachian grown branded materials and promotions that's funded through the North Carolina Tobacco Trust Fund Commission. And this is a great opportunity for you to design a label for your product or create a farm sign. Again, branding your farm as Appalachian grown and certified local, so that you are tapping into that consumer demand of folks that are looking for authentically local product. So if you're interested in this program, it is a cost share program to cover up to 50% of both design and printing cost, up to $1,500. So again, if you need a farm sign or needing to do some custom labeling, rather than going forward with that alone, contact ASAP and see what kind of opportunities there may be to help share some of that cost. And that is a strategy for reducing your risk. You're trying a new venture, you're exploring whether or not branding your farm as certified local is going to help your business or not. That is a risk that you take in creating a new label or entering a new market. But again, wanting to help farmers reduce that risk, and cost share is our one tool for that. Does anybody have any questions at this point? There is the chat screen, the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to put in questions as we go along. And for those of you that may be joining the conversation after we've been started, this is being recorded and will be up on our website, so you'll be able to access the other portion of the webinar later this week. So loans is another really important piece of managing your financial risk, and folks look to loans, of course, for anything from buying land, equipment, starting a new enterprise. And the pros and cons of loans are a little bit more straightforward. You get to access capital, but at the same time, you have to pay it back. Historically, it has been really difficult for farms to access traditional loans because a lot of those traditional lenders don't know how to determine credit worthiness for a farm. It's not, here's your standard paycheck and here's your standard records. It's a very unique operation oftentimes. And so luckily there are programs and lenders that are now focusing more on especially low interest options for farmers specifically, and folks that are learning and having a better understanding of what information is needed to collect from a farm operation to really give them a sense of that credit worthiness. As is true for our grants page, we also have resources for finding loans. And again, these are really targeted for farmers. And we try to keep this page up to date with what kind of loan opportunities and lending agencies are out there and may be a good resource for farms. So please take a look at this website as well. Again, you can go directly to the URL or drop down from the tools menu on asapconnections.org. Becky, have you been able to log in yet? Okay, I'm going to jump into some of the information about FSA. Becky Williamson's been having some problems logging in, but hopefully she can join us here as we go forward. So for looking at FSA loans, one thing that's really important to remember is that record keeping and kind of making sure you have kind of the components in place to access a loan is really important. And for any kind of accessing any kind of federal programs through USDA, you're going to need a farm number. And hopefully most of you have that. And again, your local FSA agent or office is going to be your one-stop shop for looking into some of those federal programs. It is voluntary to have a farm number, but it identifies your land and again is required for accessing any of the USDA programs. So it's something that many NCDA and soil and water grants require a farm number, and there are other benefits for having a farm number depending on the county you're in and where you're at. So the process for getting a farm number is pretty straightforward. You will file a request through your local FSA office, and again, this is a farm number for that piece of land, not you as a farmer. So you would need a copy of the deed, some addresses and some other simple information. But talking to your FSA office is going to be, they will walk you through this process. So FSA loan programs are designed to help family farmers to start, to purchase, and expand their farming operations. So again, these loan programs are built around farms. So it's going to give a lot more options and flexibility than traditional loans. There's several different loan options available to meet different needs. And again, this mentions a booth during lunch because it's because this slide is from a presentation from our Business of Farming conference. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that conference, that is an annual conference in February that we offer right here in Asheville, and I'd highly recommend it for anybody looking for planning your business operation for your farm. When you get into some of the FSA loans, there's a few terms that I think are helpful to define that aren't necessarily straightforward. Beginning farmer rancher, not a lot of folks consider themselves a beginning farmer necessarily if you've been farming for more than 5 years, but according to the USDA definition, anybody that is been farming 10 years or less is going to qualify under that beginning farmer rancher definition. So there's going to be specific programs that are available for you as a beginning farmer that you can access through FSA. A limited resource farmer or rancher is a little bit more difficult to give you a real quick synopsis of what that looks like. It's determined by looking at 2 years of your tax records and your total household income, but there's a link here to a tool that can help you determine your eligibility. And again, there are certain grants and loan programs that are available specifically for limited resource farmers. So going through that tool and contacting your FSA agent if you have questions about that to see if you would fall into that definition of a limited resource farmer. And lastly, the other definition I wanted to put out there is the socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher. And members of, and these are going to be groups of primarily minorities and women. But again, there are some multiple programs available for socially disadvantaged programs, farmers. The FSA website has a really great mix of fact sheets available about all the different services that they have available. This is one that I wanted to point out specifically that kind of gives you that overview of different farm loans. And this is updated in just the fall of this last year. So this is going to have all the new information with the most recent Farm Bill. So I'm not going to give you much more detail on these loans specifically, but wanted to show you that these are kind of the range of different loans that are available. So we've got everything from micro loans for, giving you kind of a short burst of capital to get a small business venture going, up to larger loans that are looking at farm ownership. And again, your FSA agent can talk to you about what are your needs and what are those opportunities and loan options for you. Hold on just a second here. So we have a question from Nicole. If you're a woman but partner with a man, do you still qualify? That is a very good question. And I see that Becky has joined us on the call. Becky, do you want to address that question? So it looks like Becky is having some problems with the audio. From my understanding, again, that is a great question for FSA. My understanding is if that woman is taking an active role in that farm, that you would probably still qualify for that, for those SDA loans. But again, Becky, feel free to chime in through the chat box if your audio is not working.
And then someone else also asked, what if you lease the land? How do you apply for a farm member?
Leasing land and applying for a farm number, that is a great, another question here in the chat box. And again, so those farm numbers are going with that piece of land. So that is a good question on leases. So if you're leasing land, you would just need to discuss that piece with the farm owner to apply for that farm number. So again, that is an option for folks who are leasing the land as well. But again, it is attached, the farm number is attached to the piece of land, but you would still be able to use that. If showing that lease connection there, you would still be able to use that to apply for several of these loans. The information you're going to need to submit a loan, I'm not going to go again into depth into all of the different pieces that you're going to need, but I think the main thing that you want to know that if you're going to be applying for any FSA loan, you're going to need that farm number, and you're also going to need some financial records. So you need to have 2 years of records in order to really show what your finances look like for your operation. And so again, there are different options for beginning farmers who may not have as many records as a more established farm, and your FSA agent is a great resource for walking you through all the different pieces that you're going to need to have in place. So FSA is a really important resource for farmers, but I wanted to also mention that there are other options for loans for farmers as well, and I had pointed you to the loans page on our website. These are just some of the other folks that are offering loans for farmers, and again, that is everything from smaller micro loans up to working in partnership with other lenders to be able to make sure that you're getting the capital that you need.
Hey, Molly.
Becky, welcome. I'm apologizing.
Oh my gosh.
I apologize for your audio trouble, but we have Becky Williamson on the webinar now. I apologize for the delay. Becky, I've gone through several of your slides, but I'm happy to go back to any in particular if you would like to expand on them.
Well, I apologize. I didn't have the correct call-in and ID. That I have, when you were talking about the loans, I did not hear the question that was asked that you were wanting me to emphasize on.
Well, it looks like another participant has chimed in as well. The question is whether a woman that is partnered with a man, whether they could apply for one of the socially disadvantaged farmer loan opportunities, and Charles had chimed in that a woman must have 51% of the ownership of the farm to qualify. Is that correct?
Not on the loan side.
Okay.
Unless it's an entity. If it's an entity like a partnership, then it would have to be 51%. But if they want to do it just individually, and it's going to be a man working on the farm, there's going to be another producer, that won't affect the classification for women. The loan would be in the woman's name.
So does she have to? But so she doesn't necessarily have to have 51% of the ownership of the farm.
No. She would just be applying for the loan only in her name, and that would be it. And she would own, if she's an owner on the farm, it doesn't matter what percentage. When you get into percentages, you're looking at that when you have developed a corporation or a type of entity. And so the members of that entity then have to meet the definition of the beginning farmer or SCA and all that.
Okay, great. That's helpful.
So if it's individuals, it's not looked at percentages wise.
Right. So I've pulled up. Go ahead.
The one thing that we're missing there on the slide was the youth loan.
Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, because we want, our mission today is to get these younger generations back into farming in some way. And we have a youth loan, ages 10 to 21, and you can borrow money up to $5,000 to start. You could chicken coop, to buy chickens, raise chickens, sell the eggs. That's been a big thing with children. Another thing is if they wanted to show livestock, could use the money to purchase the livestock, feed it, vaccinate it, show it, and then when they sell it, they would repay the loan. So there's all kinds of different projects. I won't get into all that, but the main thing is they have to have a mentor, somebody through like their 4-H or FSA to help them structure and with their cash flow and their expenses and on the project itself. A lot of parents are concerned and don't want to do this because they think if my child, if they can't pay this back, they're going to be left with the debt, or I'm going to be responsible for the debt, and that is not true. We want to see the students succeed, most definitely, so we're going to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen. And then on top of that, we will not, that if all else fails and it just can't be done, it doesn't go against the child or the parent. It's a government write-off. But we've never had one of those in any 3 of my counties.
Great.
So that's a great opportunity, if they wanted to raise goats, cows, anything, chickens, a crop, a row crop, vegetable crop. So that's something to keep in mind too, and that's a low interest rate. It's 2.375%. And on the operating loans that you discussed, that rate is also 2.375%. And the farm ownership is 3.5.
So could you talk a little bit more about the farm ownership loan? I know that that's something that a lot of folks cite as a real limitation to new and beginning farmers is access, to buying land. And I know that there's some opportunities to work with FSA in combination with other lenders. How does that work?
It's a guaranteed program, and a lot of times, especially nowadays, banks are real cautious about the money they lend out, and of course farming is a risky loan. So if we will guarantee 90% of their money, and so that kind of makes them feel better, and you can continue working through the bank with different terms or whatever terms they have, and we guarantee 90% of their money if they default. Correct. So that makes the banks feel better about lending the money.
So generally, if someone wants to apply for the loan, what type of records will they need to bring to the table?
If it's the microloan, all they need is that application 2330 and 1 year's tax returns and a credit report fee. If it's an individual, it's $13.50, and if it's joint, it's $20.25. And then they will need the FSA 2004 form, which is an authorization to release information. And that's it. Now, when you get into operating or ownership, you've got to provide a lot more records. And you also have to have more experience, I think 3 years experience within the last 10 years. If it's just a microloan, you don't have to have any experience. If it's a farm operating, we require 1 year experience of farming out of the past 10 years.
And can that experience be an internship, or does that need to be on your own farm?
No, it can be just as long as you've been on a farm, but you've actually has parts of managing the farm, control of the planting and harvesting and the retail.
So just managing the production piece, that doesn't have to be on the business side of the farm?
Yeah, they have to have shared, an easy way to put it is they have to have shared in the risk of the crop.
Okay.
Whatever the operation.
Right. Okay. So it doesn't just mean working as on a farm and helping with production, but also needing to take some of that risk of the operation as well.
That's correct.
So we have a question from one of our attendees. When you're talking about the 1 year or 2 year of taxes, is that individual or business tax returns?
It depends on how you're applying for the loan. If you're applying as an entity through the business, you would have to show that. They do have non-farm income and farm income. And what it amounts to, your AGI is both. You have to show to cash flow. So they consider your farm income and non-farm income to repay. So like these microloans and you're a beginning farmer, you probably don't have any farm income to consider. So it would just be your previous completed year's tax return. And if it happens to have a Schedule F attached to it, that will suffice and take care of that.
Great, thank you. Are there any other of these loans that you want to talk about specifically?
I just want to emphasize that the microloan, our district here, the far western counties, being from from Cherokee County and Murphy all the way to Burke County and Morganton, we were rated 4th in the nation for having the most microloans. And I think that's due to the way we farm here. We don't have the land as the rest of the world has. So a lot of the microloans have been used for hoop houses. That's a big growing thing here in this area, especially for these tailgate marketers, because it extends their growing season and it helps them get started. I mean, you can take $50,000 and really start you a really good farming operation. So with that being said, and that's rating 4th in the nation, and it's very quick. It's not as long drawn out as the operating or ownership. So it's simple and it's quick money. Turnaround times are like 2 weeks. And so that's something I would like for people to know more about, and I think we could have more folks that could utilize that microloan more so than operating or ownership.
And Becky, how does that translate out of state? Is that a federal program so anyone can access it, or is that specifically for North Carolina?
Oh no, that's nationwide.
Great.
It's in the Farm Bill. I did not see the slide where what FSA does, who we are, but I did highlight some of what was in bold with some of the programs that I administer most frequently here. Of course, in general, you can go online and get the 2014 Farm Bill fact sheet, and it will list all programs in a little more detail, more definition, more so than the overview. It gets into the nuts and bolts of each program. So back on that screen, I had just highlighted some of the most frequent ones. Now, a lot of these, like the tree assistance program, the emergency, the assistance livestock and honeybeeing, the livestock indemnities, livestock forage, All of those are disaster-related and natural weather-related events, such as flooding. We've had a couple of cloudbursts over some trout farms. That was covered. Fire, drought. Sometimes it's just excess moisture or excess high temperatures or freeze. But to be able to get assistance under those programs, you would have had to have suffered a disaster from a weather-related event.
So when we're talking about financial risk management, a lot of times that overlaps with production and, all these other types of risk as well. So that's a good example. FSA has a lot of programs that look at crop insurance and some of this disaster relief, so as well as loan programs. So there's a great opportunity to manage risk for your farm, both from the production end as well as that financial risk as well.
Right. And the NAP program, I wanted to touch base a little bit about that. That's the non-insurable assistance program. And that non-insurable means that each county is different in the crops that they insure on the crop insurance side. Is insurable in my 3 counties is grain corn and tobacco. They are starting to pick up a few more policy or cover more crops. So like most all vegetable crops, Christmas trees, nursery, including strawberry rootstock, we offer an insurance program for that. And if you qualify as a limited resource beginning farmer or SBA, your fees are waived. To insure a crop, it's $250 per crop up to a maximum of $750. So if you had 10 crops, the maximum you would pay would be $750 unless you're a limited resource, SBA, or beginning farmer, and that administrative fee is waived. Now that only gets you into the 50-55 coverage, which means your first 50% of loss you're going to pretty much eat, and then what you've lost over that 50%, we're going to pay you 55% of the fair market value. Now, with this new farm bill, they have added buy-up coverage for an additional premium, and you won't be billed for that premium until probably the beginning of the next year, because you will certify how many acres you planted and what you actually planted.
And sorry to interrupt, but those of you who are interested in really getting more detail about crop insurance and helping assess if that's a good match for your farm, we did have a webinar this last week about crop insurance that will be up on our website as a recorded session, as will this one, hopefully by the end of this week. So feel free to watch that webinar as well. You won't be able to chat in with questions, but James Robinson from RAFI is very knowledgeable about, including these NAP programs that you can talk with FSA about. He has a wide range of experience with crop insurance, and you can talk with him about.
Yes, and I want to also mention that we are covering organic crops now if you are organic certified.
Yes, and that's great. And I think that was one of the limitations with crop insurance in the past, is it didn't give you the price point for organic. So having that available now is really helpful for folks who are doing organic production.
Yes.
Are there any other particular questions right now? And again, I want you to think about, when you're talking about managing risk and figuring out how am I going to pay for this land, or how am I going to pay for this new business venture or this piece of equipment, really understanding your business model, creating a good solid business plan, and running those numbers, looking at your records, having those records to understand what is your break-even points for different crops, what are the financial inputs that you may need at different points of time, and then using those tools and resources, whether they be a grant opportunity or a cost share or a loan, to help build into that plan as a tool, connecting with the resources that are available to you. Cooperative Extension is very knowledgeable on everything from the production pieces of planning up through other resources and grant opportunities. FSA, of course, we've just got a tiny little peek at some of the programs and loans that they offer, connecting with these community resources and really tapping into those folks to help you make a plan to really manage both that production point as well as the financial piece of your farm, and creating some good planning tools in there is going to be really critical for your operation. Again, I want to put it out there that we are both, Becky and I, are available for questions both today and after this webinar. Our email and phone numbers are here, and you can also visit our websites. asapconnections.org is the ASAP website, and FSA is part of the USDA website system. Hopefully this information has been helpful, and again, just designed to give you a snapshot overview of what kind of resources and materials are available for you. And there will be one more webinar as part of the series next week about selling what you grow, and I'm talking a little bit more about diversifying your market opportunities and where to sell your product, and some resources again for folks in the Southern Appalachians. Eric's requesting to see the other loan options page again. Happy to go back to that as well.
We also wanted to mention about the farm storage facility loan. Did you touch base on that any at all?
I did not. You may, please go ahead.
That's a good thing. I would like to see these mobile cooler trailers, refrigerated tag-along trailers, to be approved, and it isn't yet, but I hope that's going to be something that's coming in the future. But we do cold storage as well as dry storage. So I know a lot of folks that are making cheese, soaps, and things like that. They need refrigeration coolers, and that farm storage facility loan can they can utilize that for those things, and also for hay storage, grain storage, that's available also through the farm storage facility loan. And it operates a little different, some similar to what you've seen with these other loans, but it's not as fast as the microloan. But it usually generates pretty quick if you already have in mind what you're going to, if you're going to build it, the cost estimate, the floor plan of it. If that's all, if you've got that ready to go, that doesn't, our part's easy, and it doesn't take us that long to generate that money out. But you do have to get approved for the farm storage facility loan before you can actually erect it or purchase it.
And I think that's a good point, Becky, and I know that's true for several of the programs, that it's look into these opportunities before you begin your project, once you have that initial idea, because a lot of them are limited to that approval process before you start. So that's similar to our cost share program. We want to help cover costs, and we'll reimburse folks for label and sign printing, that type of thing, but the project has to be approved before it starts. It can't be refunded kind of retroactively. So again, if as you're exploring different grant and loan opportunities, make sure that you are communicating with the funder or the agency as you're going through the planning process before you initiate that project, to make sure that you're not jumping the gun and moving forward before it's approved.
That's right. And also, I'll throw in there, we don't do any refinancing of, if you already own a farm and you want to finance it with us with a lower interest rate or for whatever reason, and we don't do refinancing.
So that
So
might,
you could do the guaranteed through a bank. And I'm going to speak out of the other side of my mouth. Don't hold me to it. But I'm thinking that if the bank is going to refinance it, then the guarantee will work for that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I'm right. I'm not the loan officer. Each district has a loan officer that services the loans. So that would be Elaine Hodgen, and she's listed at that 524-3175 number.
and again, your local FSA representative can talk to you about who the loan officer is for your particular.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm forgetting I'm talking to folks all across the nation today.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone for their time this morning. And again, this ASAP website, we try to keep the resources for both grants and loans up to date. And hopefully you can get some snapshots of what some opportunities are to save you time, weeding through a lot of the grant speak and all the different websites to give you some summaries of both the different loan opportunities and grant opportunities to see if they may be a good match for your farm. Please feel free to contact either Becky or myself if you have any particular questions, and hopefully this was a good kind of introduction of where to start and where to look, who can you connect with for accessing capital for your farm.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you very much.